Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us.
Glad to be here.
Today we're going back to ancient Greece,
Always a good time to visit.
but with a twist.
Oh.
We're focusing on the monarchs,
Ooh.
the kings and queens, and how their reigns really affected things.
So looking at the impact of these royal figures on European politics and culture.
Exactly. We always hear about Athenian democracy, but what about the monarchs who ruled alongside and sometimes even over those democratic systems?
Right. It's easy to forget that monarchy was a major force in ancient Greece too.
Totally. And they had a huge hand in shaping some of the biggest historical events.
I'd say so. Their decisions really reverberated throughout history.
So let's start with those Spartan kings.
Sparta, always a favorite.
They were known for their military might. But how did they navigate the political landscape?
Sparta is a perfect example of how even a powerful state can be outmaneuvered.
You're thinking about their dealings with Persia, right?
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
After some losses against Persia, they took a different approach.
Instead of direct conflict,
Yeah, they basically gave Persia the Greek colonies in Asia Minor.
it seemed like a big concession at the time.
It was but a smart move for Sparta.
Oh, so.
Well, they didn't have colonies there, so they lost nothing directly.
But their rivals, like Athens, took a hit,
Big time. This deal really weakened Greece as a whole and made Persia stronger.
all thanks to the Antalcidas Peace Treaty in 386 BC.
That treaty sums up how monarchs, even warrior kings, could use diplomacy and negotiation to gain power.
It's like they outsmarted everyone.
It makes you wonder if they planned it all along or just got lucky.
It's hard to know their true intentions.
But the impact was undeniable.
Speaking of impact, Sparta eventually fell despite all their cunning,
Their focus on military strength led to economic problems.
and they couldn't stand up to Thebes in the end.
It's ironic they mastered strategy on a large scale, but their internal weaknesses brought them down.
A cautionary tale for any ruler.
For sure, true power needs a balance of military, economic, and political savvy.
Now let's switch gears to Athens.
From warriors to democrats.
How did Athenian leaders shape their city's fate within a more democratic system?
Well, Athens relied heavily on trade.
They were a global trading power.
Exactly, which made them vulnerable after defeats against Sparta.
Their trade network collapsed.
Their main port, Piraeus, saw a 2/3 drop in trade volume in just 13 years.
Wow, 2/3. That's like losing your livelihood overnight.
It is. Think about our modern supply chains collapsing.
Chaos, no access to essential goods,
It highlights how interconnected the ancient world was.
and how leaders' decisions had massive economic impacts.
Athenian leaders had to make tough calls on trade alliances and military strategy.
Just like those Spartan kings, their choices had big consequences.
They did. Now, while these established powers were struggling, a new force was emerging.
Macedon.
In the north, a monarchy, unlike the Greek city-states.
They played a different game altogether,
They did. During the Greco-Persian Wars, they played both sides.
submitting to Persia while secretly helping the Greeks.
And during the Peloponnesian War, they profited by selling supplies to both Athens and Sparta.
Talk about opportunistic.
Like shrewd investors capitalizing on market volatility.
They built their power while the city-states fought each other.
Their strategy paid off when King Philip II came to power in 359 BC.
He saw an opportunity to change the Greek world.
He was a decisive leader and a military innovator.
And he moved fast, deposing his nephew, defeating Athenian mercenaries, conquering the Illyrians.
All in a few years.
Sounds like a force of nature.
He was, and his secret weapon was the Macedonian phalanx.
A revolutionary military formation.
It changed warfare in ancient Greece and beyond.
But we'll have to save the details of the phalanx and Philip II's brilliance for the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned. All right, so last time we left off with King Philip II and this Macedonian phalanx.
Yeah, this game changer of a formation.
It revolutionized warfare.
Tell me more about it. It sounds incredible.
Picture a huge grid of soldiers, 16 by 16, each one armed with a 6-meter spear.
A 6-meter spear.
It
Wow.
was called a sarissa. And this dense formation, all those spear points, they moved as one unit.
Like an impenetrable wall.
Exactly, a wall of steel. Imagine seeing that on the battlefield.
Must have been terrifying.
It was the visual impact, the coordinated movement, the reach of those sarissas. It gave them a huge advantage.
No wonder it was so effective.
But it wasn't invincible.
Right, they were vulnerable to flanking maneuvers.
That's true, and cavalry was crucial to protect their sides.
So even the best tactics have weaknesses.
Exactly. Philip II understood that, and he used the phalanx masterfully.
He proved it at the Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC.
A pivotal moment in Greek history.
Philip II's forces against the Greeks, led by Athens and Thebes,
A turning point.
What were some of the key moments in that battle?
The Theban sacred band, their fate was tragic.
That elite unit.
150 pairs of lovers fighting and dying together.
It really shows the human cost of war.
Their defeat marked the end of Theban power, and Macedon's dominance was solidified.
Philip II's victory changed everything.
It ushered in a new era, paving the way for his son,
Alexander the Great.
a name that still echoes through history.
It's hard to separate fact from legend with Alexander.
Is he really this larger-than-life figure?
Was he truly this almost mythical conqueror?
He was certainly exceptional. He was only 20 when he took the throne.
After his father's assassination.
Imagine the pressure so young a kingdom to rule an empire to expand.
It's no wonder he became a legend.
But he rose to the challenge.
He was determined.
His early campaigns focused on consolidating power.
Quelling rebellion, securing borders.
He planned, meticulously executed ruthlessly, and inspired his troops.
I can see him leading from the front, rallying his men.
A charismatic and courageous leader.
No wonder they followed him to the ends of the earth.
And those conquests, they're the stuff of legends.
His campaign against the Persian Empire, led by Darius III.
Battles on an epic scale. Thousands of soldiers clashing across vast plains.
Tell us about some of the highlights. What battles show Alexander's brilliance?
The Battle of Granicus River in 334 BC.
An early victory.
Alexander was outnumbered, but he led a daring cavalry charge.
Shattering the Persian defenses.
And securing a key crossing into Asia Minor.
He was bold and brilliant.
Then there's the Battle of Ischus in 333 BC.
Another clash against a larger Persian army.
Alexander used the terrain to his advantage and launched a devastating attack.
Routing Darius III and his forces.
Those victories must have shocked the Persian Empire.
Alexander seemed unstoppable.
He was, but it wasn't just military might.
He was also a strategist and a diplomat.
He often offered generous terms to those who surrendered.
Integrating their armies and cultures into his own.
He understood that building an empire needed more than just military victories.
He knew cultural exchange was important.
Blending Greek ideas with those of the conquered peoples.
A complex but effective approach.
It helped create a vast and long-lasting empire.
And we can't forget his love of knowledge.
He was tutored by Aristotle.
One of the greatest philosophers.
That upbringing shaped his worldview.
It influenced his vision for the world.
Alexander was known for his intellectual curiosity.
His fascination with new cultures and ideas.
He traveled with scholars and scientists, documenting everything.
Collecting knowledge and artifacts.
A grand scientific expedition with an army.
A unique blend of conquest and curiosity.
That desire to learn led him eastward across Persia into India.
Pushing the boundaries of the known world.
Further than anyone before him.
It's an incredible story.
This young king from a small kingdom, creating an empire stretching from the Mediterranean Sea to the Indus River.
Spreading Greek culture and ideas across the ancient world.
Leaving a legacy that influenced art, architecture, philosophy, and politics for centuries.
His impact on European history is huge.
It's undeniable, but every empire faces limits.
What led to the decline of Alexander's empire?
The constant campaigning took its toll on his troops and his health.
He was only 32 when he died in Babylon.
His empire was vast but short-lived.
It's as if fate shaped his legacy.
Making him a legend for both what he accomplished and what he could have done.
What if he had lived longer?
It's a question that still fascinates us.
The enduring allure of Alexander the Great.
A story of achievement, but also of unfulfilled dreams. A life cut short at its peak.
It's amazing how his conquests changed the ancient world.
His empire paved the way for the Hellenistic kingdoms.
Spreading Greek influence far and wide.
That's Alexander's true legacy, not just the territories, but the cultural exchange that followed.
The fusion of Greek and Eastern ideas, the flourishing of art and science.
A testament to the power of cultural transmission.
One monarch's actions changed the world in unexpected ways.
It's like a ripple effect. Speaking with monarchs, we can't forget the others who played important roles.
We've talked about the Spartans, the Athenians, Philip II, and Alexander.
But there are more intriguing figures.
Who else should we add to our royal roster?
Well, there's Pyrrhus of Epirus, a skilled general related to Alexander.
Pyrrhus, the guy who gave us Pyrrhic victory.
The victory that cost so much it's almost a defeat.
Exactly.
He was known for his military skills, but his campaigns against Rome were ultimately unsustainable.
He won the battles but lost the war.
A lesson in the limits of ambition.
In choosing your battles wisely.
And then there's Antigonids I Monophthalmus, the One-Eyed.
A one-eyed, that's a memorable nickname.
He was one of Alexander's generals who formed a powerful kingdom in Asia Minor.
After Alexander's empire collapsed,
He was a shrewd strategist, always fighting for control.
trying to reunite the empire.
He didn't succeed, but his dynasty, the Antigonids, ruled Macedon for generations.
It's fascinating how Alexander's empire fragmented.
Into these smaller kingdoms, each ruled by his generals.
A whole new chapter of royal history.
Each kingdom with its own story, its rulers leaving their mark on history.
Intrigues, alliances, conflicts, triumphs, and tragedies.
We could spend hours talking about them.
And I think our listeners deserve to know more about these Hellenistic kingdoms.
The successors to Alexander's empire.
That's a story for the final part of our deep dive. Last time we were talking about how Alexander's empire fragmented.
Right after his death, it didn't stay unified.
So what happened to all those territories he conquered?
Well, it ushered in what's called the Hellenistic period.
The Hellenistic period.
Yeah, his empire broke apart into smaller kingdoms.
Ruled by his former generals.
Exactly. They each had their own ambitions, you know?
So instead of one big empire,
a bunch of smaller but still powerful kingdoms.
all competing with each other.
Vying for dominance. It's a fascinating period.
So who are some of the major players in this Hellenistic world?
3 kingdoms really stand out.
Okay, lay it on me.
The Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt.
Oh, the Ptolemies.
Then you have the Seleucid Empire further east.
Okay.
And back in Alexander's homeland, you have the Antigonid dynasty in Macedon.
The Antigonids. So each of these kingdoms had a real impact.
Oh, absolutely. They shaped the political and cultural landscape of the Hellenistic world.
Their stories are full of all those things we love.
Ambitious rulers, strategic alliances, fierce battles.
It's a period that's often overshadowed by Alexander himself.
But it's just as exciting.
Let's start with Egypt. Those Ptolemies always seem so mysterious.
Well, you can't talk about the Ptolemies without mentioning Cleopatra.
Cleopatra, the last pharaoh.
Cleopatra VII, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom.
She's such an iconic figure.
She is, but her dynasty, they ruled Egypt for almost 3 centuries.
Wow, starting with Ptolemy Soter.
Another one of Alexander's generals.
So they were successful for a reason.
Oh, they were masters of administration.
They knew how to run a kingdom.
They established a very centralized bureaucracy.
To manage all of Egypt's resources.
Efficiently, too.
So it wasn't just about luxury and power.
No, they understood that a stable kingdom needed good governance and economic management.
They had to keep things running smoothly.
Exactly, and they didn't forget about culture and knowledge either.
What do you mean?
Well, think about Alexandria, their capital.
A legendary city.
It became a center of learning, home to the famous Library of Alexandria.
The Library of Alexandria, what a symbol.
A symbol of their dedication to knowledge and scholarship.
They brought together the best minds from all over.
Attracting scholars from across the Mediterranean.
It's amazing that in the middle of all the power struggles,
there was this flourishing of intellectual and cultural life.
it's inspiring.
It shows the human desire to learn even in times of turmoil.
Now, what about the Seleucid Empire?
The Seleucids, they controlled a vast territory.
From Asia Minor all the way to India.
They had a tough job governing such a huge and diverse area.
How did they even keep it together?
It was a constant challenge. They realized they couldn't rule it like Egypt.
So a different approach.
Much more decentralized. They established cities and garrisons throughout their empire.
To spread their influence.
They promoted Greek culture and language,
Right.
but they also incorporated local elites into their administration.
So a mix of promoting their own culture and respecting local traditions.
Trying to find a balance.
A delicate dance.
Were they successful?
It sounds pretty tricky.
Remarkably so. They faced challenges, of course, rebellions, conflicts with neighbors.
Sounds about right.
But they maintained a fairly stable empire for over 200 years.
That's pretty impressive.
They understood both military power and cultural diplomacy.
Now back to the Antigonids in Macedon.
Yes, back in Alexander's homeland.
They were basically holding down the fort.
In a way, their story is one of ambition, resilience, and tragedy.
Yeah.
They had a difficult task ruling Macedon, the heartland of Alexander's legacy.
They had big shoes to fill.
Exactly. But they also had to deal with the ambitions of the other Hellenistic kingdoms.
And don't forget about Rome.
Yes. Rome, always looming in the west, a rising power.
It seems like they were caught in the middle.
Their story reminds us that even powerful kingdoms can be swept away by the currents of history.
Did they ever clash with the Romans?
They did. Those were the Macedonian War.
And those wars led to their downfall.
Ultimately, yes, the Romans were too strong.
With their disciplined military and their growing ambitions.
By the mid-2nd century, BC, Macedon was under Roman control.
The end of an era.
The end of the Antigonid dynasty, and really the end of the Hellenistic period as a whole.
What an incredible journey we've been on.
It has, hasn't it?
From those cunning Spartan kings to Alexander's rise and fall.
And then the complexities of the Hellenistic kingdoms,
We've seen how monarchs really shaped ancient Greece.
and their influence on European politics and culture.
Absolutely. We've only scratched the surface, of course.
There's so much more to explore.
But we hope this deep dive has given you a new appreciation for those monarchs
For their lasting legacies.
and their impact on the world we live in today.
To our listeners, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep discovering.
There's always something new to learn in history.
Until next time, may your journeys be filled with curiosity and wonder.